being said, and of course, without any further ado, let's get right into tonight's stories, shall we? Alrighty, so the first story for this evening was originally posted by a Reddit user called tall_bail_and_meh. Now their story is called, I don't know if I'm being paranoid, but I think someone has been watching my family at night. I'll try to be brief as possible and stick to the relevant events that are giving me this feeling, but the latest event happened last night and I didn't get much sleep, so apologies if I ramble or am unclear. My wife and I recently purchased our first home after the birth of our daughter. Now everything was as you would expect for the first few months. Painting, decorating, renovating, basking in our newfound slice of the American dream. You get the idea. Unusual things started happening several months ago. One day, as I was getting home after work, I passed by a strange truck 2 or 3 houses down from ours. I say strange for a few reasons. We know literally everyone in our small neighborhood, and I had never seen this truck or this person in it before. There's no reason for through traffic to come down our street, and the truck was driving very slowly. Like, put it in drive but don't press the gas kind of slowly. As I pulled in the driveway, the truck flipped a U-turn and came back towards my house. Getting out of my car, the truck crawled by, and the driver stared daggers at me as he passed. Then he sped off. I don't like to judge based on appearances, and I like to think that I don't scare easily, but something about this guy's eyes gave me a bad feeling. Now, obviously, this was weird. I mentioned what had happened to my wife, telling her we should be more mindful about security. Now, when I told her the type of truck, my wife said that same truck drove by, and the guy stared at me when I got home this afternoon. I thought he was just being creepy and checking me out. Now, I tried to tease her a bit to lighten the mood, calling her cocky for assuming any guy driving by was just checking her out. I didn't want to freak her out, but I was definitely freaked out. We saw the truck a few more times over the next couple of weeks, either driving by slowly or parked down the block and facing our yard. But one day the truck stopped driving by, and we haven't seen it since. I sort of dismissed the whole thing as me being paranoid, and then other things started happening. Now, in the past month or so, my wife and I have been hearing tapping on windows at the front of our house at night. Oh hell no. It's happened 2 or 3 times to each of us separately, always around 10 or 11 p.m. and always a soft but distinct tap, 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 tap. It sounds like knocking with a single knuckle on the metal part of a screen door, if that makes sense. Now, the first time that my wife and I heard the tapping together was last weekend. We were in the front room playing with our daughter around 9:30, just about to settle her down for bed. Our front room has a large, almost floor-to-ceiling window running the length of the wall next to the front door, which faces the street. We were all sitting on the floor with our backs to the window, reading our daughter a book, and then we heard it. sweep around the outside of the house. Of course, I didn't see anything, and I was ready to dismiss the whole thing as more paranoia over something that probably had an innocent explanation. Until last night. Around 9:45 we heard our daughter making noise on the baby monitor. I waited a few minutes to see if she would settle down on her own, but when it became clear that she wouldn't, I got up to put her back to sleep. The layout of the room is important to visualize the next part. This room is on the side of our house, but the exterior wall juts out a bit in an L shape, and the corner of this L is made up of windows. I know exactly what they mean, I hope you do too. If you're standing in the door to the room, you're directly across from these windows in one corner, and there's a rocking chair in the other corner, pointed towards the front of the house. Now, one window faces the street and the other faces our neighbour's house. A garden bed planted with small shrubs wraps around the outside of the house directly underneath. I was sitting in the chair, getting my daughter settled down. I had a lamp on, so the room was softly lit. Once she fell asleep, I stood up to put her in her crib when something caught my eye. There was a figure standing about a foot away from the window in the bare space between the shrubs and the house. They were staring at us. I didn't look long enough to see anything more than what appeared to be a man in a light grey hoodie, standing a few feet away on the other side of the glass. Sprinting from the room, I brought my daughter back to my wife and I's bedroom, leaving her there while telling my understandably confused wife to lock the door. After turning off all the lights inside the house and turning on all the lights outside, I began moving from room to room. Peering out the windows into the darkness, I couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. Whoever it was must have taken off after seeing me notice them and make a quick exit. Obviously, I had some trouble sleeping after this. I spent hours checking security cameras and going from room to room, looking out windows into the night, hoping, but also not hoping, that I would see anything that could explain what happened. This morning, I went outside to the spot where the figure would have been standing. I hoped, maybe that there was a plant or something that I mistook for a person. Well, that must have been one big plant then. Now, when I got to the spot, I realised the figure had to be standing exactly in a bare patch of ground, about 2 feet in diameter, directly in front of that window. Part of me is still hoping that I'm being paranoid. The mind can play tricks on you in the dark, seeing things that aren't there, especially when you're a sleep-deprived new parent. But with everything that's been happening, I can't shake the feeling that there was actually someone out there last night, watching us. Please let me be wrong. See, this is one of these stories. You get so incredibly invested while reading it, right? But it's on Reddit and it's happening in real time, so there is no conclusion to this story. We don't know how it ends. But if you ask me, I 100% think that there was actually somebody out there. I mean, this Redditor describes that there is like a patch of shrubbery going like all around the house, or whatever, like a strip with shrubbery this like rationally, that he didn't mistake a plant for a person, especially with what's been going on with that truck, right? That van that they kept seeing. I mean, it's extremely sus. It's extremely sus, and honestly, I would not feel comfortable being so exposed, because the way this house is described, like, it's got a lot of windows, so I'm thinking this is like a modern style house, and it has windows from floor to ceiling all the way in the corner facing the street. I mean, and that's the daughter's bedroom. I would not trust that anymore. I would not trust that anymore. I would put curtains up and I would keep them closed 24/7, right? Wow. Now, the Redditor did say in the comments that they actually went back to the place where the person would have been standing and they took some photos there, and they spooked themselves all over again because the Redditor realised how good the view was from that exact spot. They could see everything. They could see right inside the house, see everything in that room. So that is extremely scary. I'm glad they have security cameras. I mean, they're bound to catch this guy, like, at some point, with motion detectors or whatever. Like, they're bound to catch him. Wow. I'm concerned, to say the least. I mean, I would not want to be in this situation. I wouldn't necessarily know what to do in this situation, because you know, when you alert the police that this is happening, they're not going to do anything because nothing has happened. You know, we all know the gist. Something serious has to happen before anything can be done. So I really wouldn't want to be in this situation. I'm going to try and keep an eye on it on Reddit, on this person's profile, to see if there's any more updates in the future, because, like I said, now I'm really invested in this story. That is wild. Wow. Okay, so the next one is very different than anything we've done on this channel. So this is a unique one, but it is so disturbing. Alright, so this story was originally posted to Reddit by a user called StarbucksMommy, and their story is called "Best Friend Lied to His Family, saying that he fathered my child." I'm a 26 female, and I recently found out that my gay best friend, 30 male, has been using pictures of my child and I on social media to create the illusion that he has a girlfriend and a baby. To give a little background, we have been close friends for years. When I found out that I was pregnant, he immediately volunteered to be the godfather, and because we've had such a positive relationship over the years, I agreed. Once my baby was born, I would send occasional holiday and milestone pictures to close friends and family. I never really felt comfortable posting my child on social media for privacy purposes. My child is now 2. I understand that. I feel that. That's perfectly reasonable. Now, a couple of years ago, I noticed that my best friend used Facebook, but we weren't friends. I asked if he could add me, and his excuse not to was, "Oh, trust me, you wouldn't want to be friends with me on there because reason to not want to be connected on social media, but I respected it anyway. Fast forward to present time. I've started to struggle financially and I lost my home. My best friend offered my child and I to stay in his home until I was back on my feet. I mean, that's nice of him. He would leave his laptop for me to apply for jobs or do whatever else I needed to do. Now one day I decided to check my Facebook on the laptop and I noticed that he was already logged in. Curiosity got the better of me and I decided to check the photos that he's uploaded, since I never was allowed to be his friend on social media. To my surprise, I found a bunch of pictures of my kid and I. What was even more alarming is that he was claiming to be my child's father. From the very first day that my child was born, Jesus wept. He even posted a birth announcement. I feel like I need my tea now. I mean, if this is not tea, then I don't know what is. It's creepy tea. It's creepy tea. There's no discussion about that, but this, wow. So, he even posted a birth announcement. His mum and family have been commenting under pictures of my kid, calling my child their grandbaby. And family member, I mean, can you imagine finding this out? Which makes sense as to why every birthday and Christmas his mum has been sending my child gifts. I thought she was just being thoughtful, but she is under the assumption that she is the grandmother. I've never personally met her or any of his relatives. He's also been posting fabricated statuses about us co-parenting. There's just so much more. I felt sick to my stomach and immediately started confiding to another close friend of mine. After I sent her screenshots, she was also in shock. Understandably so. I mean, I am in shock. And I don't know this Redditor. I mean, I am shooketh. She said she believes he's doing this to cover the fact that he's gay to his family. Kind of what I was thinking. I personally never knew that he was a closeted gay because he's always been a very vibrant person ever since I've known him. But then again, I'm not sure how his personality is around his family because I've never met them. So anyways, yes, I'm very disturbed. This entire time I thought that I was protecting my child's privacy from social media when this friend has posted every single photo that I've sent to my family and my close friends for the past 2 years, claiming to be my child's dad. Honestly, it's chilling. I don't know these people and I am angry reading this. Can you imagine finding out that your best friend has been doing this? I also think it's most likely to cover up the fact that he is gay to his family. Maybe he has a family that's particularly not accepting of the LGBTQ community and he's trying to cover up the fact that he is gay. That is a possibility. Maybe he's scared for the reactions. Maybe he's scared to be disowned or just excluded from the family. And maybe they have been up his ass asking him when he's gonna get a girlfriend and stuff. this is very, very disturbed. Wow. Now, the Redditor said that they are currently still living in this friend's house, but they are making arrangements to move out. Her and her daughter are making arrangements to move out as soon as possible. I mean, I wouldn't want to stay there anymore. You know, the Redditor said that she never thought of it, like that he might be still in the closet with his family because he's always been a very vibrant person, which I know exactly what she means. But oftentimes when people who are gay are still in the closet, they can massively tone down their personality. I mean, it is a possibility, is all I'm saying. It probably started with like a little lie. It was probably quite a convenient lie to say that his best friend was actually his girlfriend if his family was like up his ass about it, right? But then it snowballed because this girl got pregnant, the Redditor got pregnant, so they had to kind of keep up with this lie, and it just snowballed further and further and further. And when that happens, you can't go back. Do you see what I mean? And because this snowballing happened, he didn't feel like he could just back out of this lie. He was gonna stick to it no matter what, right? Oh wow. I mean, if this was me, I don't think I could be friends with this person anymore. Like, this is kind of major. Like, this is major, this situation. And also, the Redditor has explicitly chosen to protect her child's privacy and not post any pictures on social media. He probably knew that. And yet here he is posting every single picture that the Redditor has sent him of that child on Facebook. Wow. I'm surprised, like honestly, I'm surprised he's been able to keep it up this long. Like, the child is 2 years old. He posted a birth announcement. He's been able to keep this up for at least 2 years. That is mental to me. That is mental to me. Once again, I would love to know, like, what happens after this, right? Because he's gonna get exposed. And I would love to see it. I mean, things like these, they always come back to bite you in the ass. I do feel sorry for the Redditor though, because she is the victim here. She's also lost her best friend, and she's already, going through a rough patch financially. She's lost her home, and now she has to deal with this as well. I feel sorry for the Redditor, definitely. Alrighty, last story for this evening, and it's a long one. So this one was originally posted by a Reddit user called next-error-96, and their story is called Very Weird Situation with My Friend's Who Passed Away Boyfriend. Back in July, a good friend and co-worker of mine passed away suddenly. We will call her Jane. Now, Jane was in her early 60s, which is a big age gap in comparison to me, but she was like a mother figure to me. She never had kids and always considered me a daughter. That's nice. I've known her for about 4 years prior to her passing. Now, the day she got admitted to the hospital, nobody at work knew. She didn't show up for her shift, so we sensed something was wrong, so he phoned 911. They found her on the couch, unconscious. She had suffered from multiple strokes. Now, when the landlord told us this, I immediately went to the hospital along with my other colleagues. She has no kids, no parents, no siblings, etc. I knew she had a boyfriend, but they didn't live together. I asked her landlord if the boyfriend knew, and he said no. I figured the best thing to do is get in contact with someone close to her. The people at the hospital kept asking me if I knew anyone they could contact, any family at all. I told them no, but that I knew she had a boyfriend named Steve. Now that's not his real name, but we'll use it for the story. The next day I was off work, but I got a call. My colleague saying Steve called the store because he was worried about Jane. He hasn't heard from her, so he wanted to call and see if she was working. Again, perfectly reasonable. My colleagues told Steve that he'd better give me a call because she didn't want to be the one to tell him the news. Okay, now shortly after I hang up the phone, I get a new phone call from Steve. I told him what had happened and he sounded very worried and asked what hospital she was in. I told him, and I mentioned that I would also be going to that hospital that day to see her. When I get there, Steve arrives shortly after. Now, I know everyone grieves differently, but he was acting very odd. I was bawling my eyes out like a baby. I'm very emotional though, and he seemed like cold and distant. He barely stood next to her. Also, to my understanding, they had been dating for 12 plus years. They used to live together, but Jane moved out into her own place. I mean, that's never a good sign, is it? I mean, if you've been with someone for 12 years and you move out to live on your own, that's never a good sign, is it? Now, if it was a good sign, this story wouldn't be on this channel, so. Now, when the nurses came in to talk to Steve, they asked him a bunch of questions. They asked him questions like if she had any pets, where she worked, where she lived, her employment status. Now, he got all the questions wrong. He said she lived in a completely different city that's almost an hour away, which didn't make any sense. He also said that she had no pets, but she had 2 cats that meant everything to her. Like, she literally didn't stop talking about them, and everyone at work knew she had them. He also said that she was part-time, but she was actually a full-time. Now, the nurse was so thrown off by this and thought this was strange, how a long-term boyfriend knew nothing about his girlfriend after that long together. This nurse is onto something. Now, the nurse even told me in private that she got bad vibes from him because of how weird he was acting towards the whole situation. See, this nurse be onto something. Now, during this hospital visit, the landlord ended up showing up and Steve got in a huge argument with him. He asked who the hell he was and didn't even know Jane was renting. He thought she moved into a late parent's house after she moved out from his place. Now, the landlord said that he wasn't going to give out any information to Steve, and he stayed quiet. After Steve left, the landlord told me very, very concerning things. I was so emotional at the time, but now that I think back on it, I'm like, what the actual hell? The landlord told me that he and Jane had known each other for a long time, and that Jane knew he had properties that he was renting out, so she asked him if she could please rent one because she needed to get out of Steve's house. She told him that Steve was crazy during the whole time that Jane was in the hospital, Steve would text me and he would ask how she was doing if I was there and he wasn't, and vice versa. Now, this was nothing out of the ordinary. I could understand this. The hospital got hold of Jane's family in another state, and they made the decision to take her off life support since the damage from the strokes was so severe. Wow. Now, Steve called me and said that he's a mess and really distraught. He asked me if I could please be a support system for him and keep in touch because he felt like his world was falling apart. I told him yes, and that if he ever needed anything to call. I feel like this is a bad decision. He began texting me almost every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. Like I said, at first, when she was in the hospital, I appreciated the text because they were updates on her condition. But after that, I felt like the texting should be minimal to none at all anymore. I didn't know him at all other than what Jane had told me about him sometimes. But I felt bad at the same time because I know grieving is a hard thing to go through. So I wrote back, but I kept it short. The text started from things like, "When do you think her service will be?" which I didn't mind, but then they just got weird. And he was asking me about my day, if I was working, just things that were off topic. I didn't mind speaking to him if it pertained to Jane or her service, but I was not going to text him about other personal things, so I stopped responding to him eventually. Now, Steve was of course at Jane's service, and at the end of the service, Steve said his goodbyes to everyone, and then when he saw me, he said in a low voice, "The next time I text you, please respond back to me." My co-worker who was next to me heard this and thought it was a very strange remark, because it is. I didn't respond and just left. Now later, as the days went on, I started getting more texts from him. I stopped responding entirely. After a while, I got annoyed with him constantly texting me, and I texted him back saying that I understand that he is grieving, but that the texts were not about Jane and they were too personal for me. I wasn't interested in speaking to him anymore about this kind of stuff, and even told him that my boyfriend does not want me to text him anymore as of today. He just said okay, and I actually didn't hear from him for quite some time. That is, until a few days ago. I was at work and Steve came in through the doors. He said hello to all my colleagues and asked them how they were doing. He saw me and tried talking to me, but luckily I was with a customer at the time, so he ended up just leaving. Then, just today, the same thing happened. He came in and he started talking to everyone at my counter. He saw me, but again, I was helping a customer, so he left. Every time he comes into the store, he leaves empty-handed. He never buys anything. I'm actually concerned at this point. I haven't really told anyone at work the full story because I tried to at one point, and I feel like they were on his side, saying that he's just grieving and he needs someone to talk to. Yeah, but not you though. Like, what the hell? I've questioned if I'm overreacting at this point or if I was rude to Steve. You guys know what I'm gonna say, right? I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm gonna tell you exactly what I think. I think that Steve is a major creep. Firstly, there must have been quite secondly, he doesn't know the Redditor. There is no reason whatsoever why she should be his support system. She doesn't know the guy. I mean, she's been really nice to him, like actually trying to be supportive and like entertaining him with like messaging and stuff. I wouldn't have done that. I would not have done that. I would have felt uncomfortable like so quickly in this whole interaction, like so quickly. But no, she was nice enough to do that for him, but then he decided to take it like to a personal level, asking her personal questions, which is just so out of order. I feel like the only thing that was missing here was him asking what she was wearing. That would have been like the cherry on top, like, right? Oh wow, this guy. I feel like this guy is like a hazard. This is never gonna end well. If she continues to entertain this, like, it's never gonna end well. The fact that he is now coming to the store to like physically see her is concerning. It is so concerning, and he is clearly going there with the sole reason of seeing her, because he's not buying anything. He's not buying anything. He just literally stands there and waits for her to finish, but then doesn't quite wait for her to finish, and he leaves. But do you see what I mean? He's not buying anything. He clearly just goes there to either intimidate her, or just because he's just a creep and he wants to see her or something. This is wild. I also don't understand why her co-workers are on his side. Like, how can you not see that he is the creep in this situation? Like, I mean, I guess they don't have the full story, because the Redditor said I never told anyone the full story at work, but she tried to. I mean, girl, I'm not on Steve's side here. I'm on your side, and I feel like this Redditor needs to protect herself, right? Because this Steve guy, bad news. Bad news. Like, there is no way around this. Again, I would love an update on this, because I wouldn't be surprised if Steve is going to take it even further and he's going to start like properly harassing her or stalking her. But yeah, at this point, right now, there is no update. I'll keep an eye on it again, but I'm very concerned for this Redditor. Now, once again, I mean, you don't have to be nice to strangers. It's perfectly fine to be rude to Steve. Honestly, I would have been way ruder to Steve. I wouldn't worry about that. And honestly, Steve kind of deserves like a foot up his ass. What a complete creep, am I right? Anywho, like I said, I'm quite concerned. And I don't know how this is going to play out, but I'm worried for this Redditor. And I hope that she learns to stick up for herself more. It's really hard. I know that. I've been through it, and I'm still going through it, and I'm getting better at it because of these stories and because of this channel. I know it is hard, but I do hope that the Redditor learns to stick up for herself more, and learns that it's okay to be rude to people who are being creepy towards you, right? It's okay to say that you're uncomfortable with something. It's okay to block off anyone's like advances, basically. Just stick up for yourself. Never forget that, because nobody else is going to. It's you who has to do that. Anyways, you guys, my camera has died 3 times over the course of filming this video. So I think it is time that we end this episode. Now, thank you guys so is to wish you a very